The diplomatic station hung in space like a silver jewel, orbiting the neutral moon of Talvos. Inside its gleaming corridors, representatives from dozens of species gathered for what many called the most important summit in galactic history. The Valerian Empire and the Terran Alliance were finally ready to talk peace after decades of Cold War. Jiho stood at attention in the security briefing room, his dark uniform crisp and professional. Commander Dayon was explaining the assignment to him with a mixture of sympathy and warning in her eyes. "The Valerian princess arrives in 2 hours," Dayon said. "You'll be her personal guardian for the entire summit." 2 weeks, Jiho. The council chose you specifically because you're the best we have. Jiho nodded. He understood what this meant. The Valerians didn't trust humans. They saw Earth's people as newcomers to the galaxy, barely civilized compared to their ancient empire. Assigning a human guardian to their princess was a political gesture, a test of goodwill. "It wouldn't be easy. She won't like it," Jiho said quietly. "No," Dayon agreed. "She won't. But that's not your problem. Your job is to keep her alive, whether she likes you or not." When Princess Nara's ship docked, Jiho was waiting at the arrival bay with the official welcome committee. The airlock opened, and she emerged in a flowing gown that seemed to shimmer with its own light. Her skin had a silver luminescence that marked her as Valerian royalty, and her eyes were currently a deep purple. Though Jiho knew they would change color with her moods, she was beautiful by any standard. But Jiho kept his expression neutral and professional. Beauty didn't matter. His job was protection, nothing more. Emperor Taman walked beside his daughter. A tall figure with the same silver skin, but eyes that had seen many years of rule. Behind them came 6 Valerian guards in traditional armor, their weapons both ceremonial and deadly. The station commander made the introductions. When he reached Jiho, there was a moment of awkward silence. "Princess Nara," the commander said, "this is Jiho, from Earth's Special Operations Division. Per the treaty negotiations, he will serve as your personal guardian during the summit." Nara's eyes shifted to a sharp red. She looked at Jiho as if he were something unpleasant she had stepped in. She didn't speak to him. Instead, she turned to her father and spoke in Valerian, clearly assuming the humans wouldn't understand. "This is an insult, Father." "A human? They expect me to trust my safety to one of these primitives?" Jiho kept his face blank. He spoke 7 languages, including Valerian. But he saw no reason to reveal that yet. Emperor Timon's response was gentle but firm. "It is part of the agreement, Nara. We must show trust to receive trust." "I would rather have no guard at all," Nara said coldly. "That is not an option," her father replied. Then he switched to Common Galactic and addressed Jiho directly. "You have an important duty, Guardian. My daughter's safety is precious to me and to my empire." Jiho bowed respectfully. "I understand, Your Majesty. I won't fail you." Nara made a small sound of disgust and walked away without acknowledging him. Her attendants followed, and Jiho fell into step behind them. Maintaining the proper distance for a bodyguard, the first 3 days were difficult. Nara refused to speak to Jiho directly. When she needed to communicate something, she would tell one of her attendants, who would then relay the message to him. She treated him as invisible, as if he were a piece of furniture that unfortunately had to follow her around. Jiho remained professional. He established security protocols for her quarters, checked every room before she entered, and monitored everyone who came near her. Nara ignored every precaution he suggested. When he advised her to vary her daily routine, she made sure to follow the exact same schedule just to spite him. When he recommended she inform him before leaving her quarters, she made a point of slipping out without notice at the formal dinners and diplomatic sessions. Nara would mock human customs in Valerian, making her attendants laugh. She called humans the monkey children of the galaxy and wondered aloud how they had managed to build starships without opposable toes. The jokes were cruel but creative, and Jiho had to admit she was clever. He never responded. He just did his job, watching the crowds, monitoring the security feeds, and making sure no threat got close to her. On the 4th night, things changed. There was a gala in the grand ballroom, with representatives from 30 different species. Nara wore a dress that looked like liquid starlight, and she moved through the crowd with practiced grace, speaking to diplomats and making connections that would help her empire. Jiho watched from his position near the wall. His eyes never stopped moving, cataloging faces, watching hands, noting who stood too close or looked too interested. That's when he spotted them. 3 servers who moved wrong. Their steps were too careful, their eyes too focused. They weren't looking at the guests they served. They were looking at Nara. He activated his cum quietly. Dayon, I have 3 possibles. Servers northwest quadrant. Can you run their IDs? Stand by. Dayon's voice came back. Jiho moved closer to Nara, positioning himself between her and the suspicious servers. She noticed him approaching, and her eyes flashed red with annoyance. She stepped away deliberately, making sure he couldn't get close. Clear, Dayon said in his ear. IDs check out. You're seeing shadows, Jiho. But Jiho's instinct said otherwise. He watched the servers for another 20 minutes. They never made a move, never did anything wrong. But they also never stopped watching the princess after the gala. Jiho requested a private word with Nara. She refused, naturally. He sent a message through her attendants, warning her that he had observed suspicious activity and her quarters might not be secure. Her response came back in writing. The human sees threats where there are none. His paranoia is noted and dismissed. That night, while Nara slept, someone entered her quarters. The intruder was skilled, bypassing the standard security without triggering alarms. But Jiho had installed his own monitoring devices, human technology that the station's systems didn't recognize. He was inside her suite in seconds. But the intruder was already gone, having fled through a maintenance shaft. Nothing was taken. Nothing was disturbed. But someone had been there, moving through her rooms. Perhaps scanning her belongings or planting surveillance devices. Jiho spent the rest of the night sweeping for bugs and securing the access points. In the morning, he tried to report the incident to Nara. She looked at him with cold eyes that had shifted to icy blue. You fabricate threats to make yourself seem important. I do not believe you. I do not trust you. And I do not want you here. Someone was in your quarters last night, Jiho said calmly. Impossible. The security systems would have alerted us, not if they knew how to bypass them. You are dismissed, Nara said. I will speak to my father about replacing you with someone competent. Jiho bowed and left. But he didn't stop working. If she wouldn't listen to warnings, he would just have to protect her without her cooperation. It wouldn't be the first time he had guarded someone who hated him, but it might be the most dangerous. Jiho met with Dayon in a secure conference room the next morning. The security chief pulled up holographic displays showing the station's activity logs from the past week. 3 diplomatic aides have disappeared, Dayon said, highlighting names on the screen. 2 Valerian, 1 from the Korthon delegation. Station security is calling them voluntary departures, saying they took transport ships home. But you don't believe that? Jiho said. Their families haven't heard from them? And look at this. Dayon brought up communication logs. Encrypted transmissions going out to an unknown source beyond the station. Someone here is sending information to someone out there. Jiho studied the data carefully. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. The princess is a target. They're gathering intelligence on her movements, her security, her schedule. Agree, Dayon said. But convincing her of that is your problem? She won't even talk to me because I'm human. Jiho had tried. Nara had gone to her father and demanded a new guardian. Emperor Taman had refused gently but firmly. The human guardian was part of the treaty arrangement, he explained. To reject Jiho would be seen as rejecting the peace process itself. Nara had no choice but to accept it, which only made her treat Jiho with more contempt. The days continued in the same pattern. Nara attended diplomatic sessions, strategy meetings, and cultural events. She was impressive in these settings, Jiho had to admit. She spoke multiple languages fluently, understood complex political situations, and negotiated with skill beyond her years. She genuinely cared about her people's welfare and worked hard to secure the best possible peace terms for the Valerian Empire, but she still treated Jiho like he was invisible. Or worse, like he was a piece of trash stuck to her shoe. On the 7th day, Jiho was standing outside a strategy room while Nara met with her father's advisors. Daeon approached with a concerned expression. "We need to talk," Daeon said quietly. "Somewhere the princess won't overhear." They moved to a maintenance corridor. Daeon activated a privacy field that would block listening devices. "I've identified the group behind this," Daeon said. "They call themselves the Crimson Star Coalition. They're a mix of species, but all with the same goal. They want the peace talks to fail." "Why?" Jiho asked, though he could guess. "Money. War is profitable for them. They manufacture weapons, run mercenary operations, profit from conflict zones. Decades of Cold War between the Valerian Empire and the Terran Alliance has made them rich. Peace would destroy their business, so they'll kill to stop it." "Exactly. And the princess is a perfect target. Kill her, blame it on human security failures, and the Emperor will never sign a peace treaty." Jiho felt a chill. "Do we have proof?" "Fragments. Enough to know they're here, not enough to know who they are." Daeon paused. "I'm sending this to Valerian security. They need to know." But when Daeon presented the information to the Valerian security commander, the response was dismissive. Human intelligence methods were considered primitive. Human technology was viewed as inferior. The Valerian commander thanked Daeon politely and did nothing. Jiho increased his vigilance. He checked every person who came near Nara. He analyzed her schedule for vulnerabilities. He ran background checks on everyone she would meet, and he did it all while she pretended he didn't exist. One evening, Jiho was doing a security sweep of the corridor outside a state dinner when he overheard voices. Nara had stepped out onto a private balcony with one of her attendants, and their conversation drifted through the open door. "The human is always watching," the attendant said in Valerian. "Does it not disturb you, princess?" "He disturbs me by existing," Nara replied. "I cannot wait for this summit to end, so I never have to see him again." Jiho expected that. What came next surprised him. "But you must admit," the attendant said carefully, "he is very dedicated. I have never seen someone work so hard for someone who treats them so poorly." "Right. It is his job," Nara said coldly. "He does it because he is paid, not because he cares." There was a pause. Then the attendant spoke again. "I saw him speaking with Commander Daeon yesterday. They were discussing you, complaining about me, no doubt," Nara said. "No, princess. Quite the opposite. The human called you brilliant. He said your diplomatic skills were exceptional and that your pride came from caring deeply about your responsibilities, not from arrogance." Jiho hadn't realized anyone was listening to that conversation. He waited, curious about Nara's response. He said that. Nara's voice was different now, uncertain. "Yes, he defended you to his own commander. He said anyone who could negotiate the trade agreements you secured yesterday deserved nothing but respect." There was a long silence. Finally, Nara said, "Perhaps I have misjudged him slightly, but only slightly." Jiho moved away before they could discover he had heard. But something had shifted, even if Nara wouldn't admit it. The next day, Nara was scheduled to visit a cultural exhibition aboard a neighboring vessel. It was a routine trip, just a short shuttle flight. Jiho arrived early to inspect the shuttle, as he always did. The pilot watched with barely concealed impatience as Jiho checked every system. "The shuttle was inspected this morning by station maintenance," the pilot said. "You're wasting time." Jiho ignored him and continued his check. He found it in the fuel system, a small device, barely visible, attached to the fuel line. It was designed to cause a pressure buildup that would result in an explosion about 10 minutes into flight. His blood went cold. He immediately called for an emergency shutdown and contacted station security. Within minutes, bomb disposal experts confirmed what he had found. The device was sophisticated, would have destroyed the shuttle completely. Nara was waiting in the departure lounge when Jiho came to give his report. Her attendants and guards surrounded her, all staring at the human who had delayed their princess. "Your Highness," Jiho said formally, "the shuttle has been sabotaged. Someone placed an explosive device in the fuel system. If we had launched, everyone aboard would have died. The color drained from Nara's silver skin. Her eyes shifted rapidly through several colors before settling on a pale yellow. You are certain? Station security has confirmed it. You can view the evidence yourself. Nara stood slowly. She walked to where Jiho stood and looked at him directly for the first time since they had met. Really looked at him, seeing him as a person instead of an inconvenience. You saved my life, she said quietly. I did my job, Jiho replied. No, Nara said. You did more than your job. You were thorough when others would have been careless. You were vigilant when I made your work as difficult as possible. You protected me even though I have treated you with nothing but contempt. She placed her hand over her heart in a Valerian gesture of sincere gratitude. I owe you my life, Guardian Jiho, and I owe you an apology. I have been cruel and unfair. I judged you by your species instead of your character. That was wrong, Jiho bowed. Apology accepted, Your Highness. I would like to start again, Nara said. If you are willing, I am willing. For the first time, Nara smiled at him. It was a small smile, hesitant and uncertain, but genuine. Then perhaps you could tell me about yourself. I find I know nothing about the man who saved my life. As they walked back to her quarters under heavy guard, Nara asked questions. Real questions, not insults disguised as curiosity. She wanted to know about Earth, about his training, about why he had chosen this profession. Jiho answered honestly. He told her about growing up on a world that had only recently joined the galactic community, about humanity's struggle to prove themselves worthy of respect, about his own desire to show that humans could be trusted with important responsibilities. And for the first time, Nara listened. Really listened. The attempted sabotage changed everything on the station. Security protocols were upgraded throughout the facility. Additional guards were assigned to all delegation quarters. Emperor Taman personally ordered enhanced protection for his daughter, but Nara made a specific request. She wanted Jiho to remain as her primary guardian. Not as a political gesture anymore, because she trusted him. The announcement surprised many, especially the Valerian nobles who had been critical of the human presence. But Nara stood firm. She explained to her father and his advisors exactly how Jiho had discovered the explosive device, how his thoroughness had prevented a tragedy. She spoke with conviction, defending the human guardian who she had mocked just days before. Their working relationship transformed. Nara began consulting with Jiho about her schedule, actually listening when he suggested security modifications. She informed him before leaving her quarters. She introduced him to diplomats and officials as her trusted guardian, not as an unfortunate requirement. One evening, Nara invited Jiho to join her for dinner in her private quarters. It was highly unusual. Guardians typically ate separately, but Nara insisted. I want to know more about Earth, she said as they ate. I have realized that I know almost nothing about your world despite my empire having observed it for decades. Jiho talked about Earth's history, about humanity's journey from a single planet to the stars. He described the diversity of cultures, the struggle to unite under one planetary government, the excitement and terror of first contact with alien species. We were afraid, Jiho admitted. We discovered we were not alone in the universe, and that we were far behind most other species in technology and development. Some humans wanted to hide. Others wanted to fight. But most of us just wanted to learn and catch up. You have, Nara said. In just 200 years, humans have accomplished what took my people 2,000. It is remarkable. I did not see it before because I was blinded by prejudice. And I have learned about Valerian culture from you, Jiho said. The weight you carry as heir to such an ancient empire, the responsibility you feel toward your people, the pressure of expectations, not to look down at her plate. My father is a good emperor, but he grows old. Soon, the crown will pass to me. I fear I am not ready. You are ready, Jiho said with certainty. I have watched you negotiate treaties that experienced diplomats would struggle with. You care deeply about doing what is right, not just what is easy. That is what makes a good leader. You truly believe that? I do. Nara smiled, and her eyes shifted to a warm gold color. Jiho was learning to read her eye colors now. Gold meant contentment, happiness. But their moment of peace was interrupted by Jiho's come device. It was Dayon, and she sounded urgent. "We have a breakthrough," Dayon said. "Can you come to the security center? Bring the princess, if she is willing. She needs to see this." They arrived at the security center within minutes. Dayon had holographic displays showing communication intercepts, financial records, and personnel files. "The Crimson Star Coalition," Dayon began, "has agents embedded in both the Valerian and human delegations. We have identified 3 confirmed operatives and have strong suspicions about 7 more." "That many?" Nara said, her eyes shifting to alarmed orange. "They have been planning this for months," Dayon continued. "Their target is not just you, Princess. They intend to strike during the treaty signing ceremony in 3 days. Multiple assassinations, key figures from both sides. If they succeed, the peace talks will collapse, and our peoples will likely go to war." Chiho studied the data carefully. "We need to arrest them now." "Cannot," Dayon said. "We have circumstantial evidence, but nothing that would hold up in a galactic court. These people are skilled. They have covered their tracks well." "Then what do we do?" Nara asked. Chiho thought for a moment. "We set a trap. We create an opportunity they cannot resist. Draw them out into the open where we can catch them in the act." "Use them as bait?" Dayon asked, though her expression suggested she already knew the answer. "Me," Nara said firmly. "We use me as bait." "Absolutely not," Chiho said immediately. "It is too dangerous." "It is my duty," Nara replied, her eyes shifting to determined red. "These people want to destroy the peace between our worlds. They want to see my people and yours return to war. I will not allow it. You could be killed." "I could be killed if we do nothing and they succeed in their larger plan," Nara countered. "At least this way, I am choosing to face the danger instead of waiting for it to find me." They argued for an hour. Chiho refused to put Nara in deliberate danger. Nara insisted that as a princess and future empress, protecting her people was her highest responsibility, even if it meant personal risk. Finally, they reached a compromise. Nara would adjust her public schedule to create opportunities for the conspirators to act. She would appear vulnerable at specific times and locations. But Chiho would implement countermeasures at every step. Hidden guards, surveillance systems, escape routes. They would make it look like an opportunity while actually maintaining control. Dayon would coordinate with trusted security personnel from both human and Valerian forces. They had to be careful. With traitors embedded in both delegations, they could not trust everyone. Over the next 2 days, they prepared meticulously. Chiho mapped every corridor Nara would walk through, every room she would enter. He positioned guards in concealed locations. He installed monitoring devices that the conspirators would not detect. Nara played her part perfectly. She announced a sudden interest in visiting the station's botanical gardens, a location far from the secure diplomatic zones. She would go in the evening, she said, when the gardens were quietest. Just a peaceful walk with minimal security, a brief escape from the stress of negotiations. It was an obvious trap, but one that the conspirators would have to take seriously. The princess, vulnerable and isolated, it might be their best chance. Chiho hated every moment of the plan. He trusted his preparations, but he also knew that no security plan was perfect. Something could always go wrong. The evening arrived. Nara wore a simple gown, nothing fancy. She walked through the station corridors with Chiho at her side, and only 2 visible guards following at a distance. To any observer, it looked like minimal protection, but hidden in the walls and ceiling. A dozen more guards watched through advanced surveillance. Dayon monitored everything from the security center, ready to deploy rapid response teams at the first sign of trouble. They entered the botanical gardens. The space was beautiful, filled with plants from dozens of worlds. Soft lighting created shadows among the leaves and flowers. It would be a perfect place for an attack. Nara walked slowly, apparently admiring the plants. Chiho stayed close, his eyes scanning constantly. His hand rested near his weapon, ready to draw in an instant. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. "Perhaps they did not take the bait," Nara whispered. "Or perhaps they are more patient than we expected," Chiho replied quietly. Then Dayan's voice came through his earpiece, tense and urgent. "Jiho, we have a problem. Motion sensors just detected armed individuals entering the gardens through maintenance access points. But it is not the people we identified. This is a different team. A backup team we did not know about." Giho's blood went cold. "How many?" 8. "Heavily armed. They are moving toward your position now." At the same moment, the lights in the garden went out. Emergency power failed to activate. They were plunged into darkness. "Run," Jiho said to Nara, grabbing her hand. But before they could move, plasma fire lit up the darkness. The 2 visible guards went down immediately, stunned but alive. The hidden guards were pinned down by suppressing fire from multiple directions. "This way," Jiho said, pulling Nara toward a service corridor he had memorized during his preparation. They ran through the darkness, following paths Jiho had walked a dozen times in the past 2 days. Behind them, he could hear footsteps. The attackers were pursuing. "They've blocked the main exits," Dayan said in his ear. "You need to reach maintenance level 3. I can get you out from there." Jiho changed direction, leading Nara through a maze of corridors. His combat training and enhanced vision implants helped him navigate in the darkness. Nara stayed close, trusting him completely. They reached a junction, and Jiho heard voices ahead. He pulled Nara into a side corridor just as a group of armed figures passed by. They were trapped between 2 groups of attackers. "We are outmaneuvered," Jiho said quietly to Dayan. "Help is coming," Dayan replied. "You just need to hold out for 10 more minutes. It might as well be 10 hours. The station shook with explosions. The Crimson Star Coalition had activated sleeper agents throughout the facility, creating chaos on multiple levels. Fire alarms screamed. People ran through corridors in panic. The carefully planned trap had turned into a nightmare. Jiho led Nara through maintenance passages and service corridors, spaces he had mapped during his security assessments. His enhanced vision let him see in the darkness while others stumbled blind. But the attackers had thermal imaging and motion sensors. They were hunting systematically. "Left here," Jiho whispered, guiding Nara around a corner. They pressed against the wall as a patrol passed just meters away. Jiho could hear their communications. They knew the princess was in this section. They were converging. Dayan Jiho said quietly into his comm. "Status." "The station is under siege," Dayan replied, her voice tight with stress. "They have control of the docking bays and are holding hostages. Human and Valerian forces are trying to coordinate, but it is messy. You are on your own for now." Jiho checked his weapon. 1 plasma pistol with a half-charge, against at least 8 trained operatives, probably more. The math was bad. They moved deeper into the maintenance levels. The corridors here were narrow, filled with pipes and conduits. It would limit the attackers' ability to surround them, but it also limited escape routes. A figure appeared ahead. Jiho fired first, a clean shot that dropped the operative before he could raise his weapon. But the sound brought others. 3 more operatives rushed around the corner, weapons blazing. Jiho pushed Nara behind a support column and returned fire. The narrow corridor worked in his favor. They could only come at him 1 or 2 at a time. He dropped another attacker, wounded a 3rd, but then he felt the plasma bolt hit his shoulder. The pain was intense, like being branded with hot metal. He stumbled, but kept his weapon up, firing even as his left arm went numb. The remaining attackers retreated, regrouping. Jiho knew they would be back with more support. "You are hurt," Nara said, her voice shaking. She tore fabric from her dress and pressed it against his wound. Her hands were steady despite the fear in her eyes. "I will be fine," Jiho said, though the pain made his vision blur. "Let me see," Nara insisted. She examined the wound with surprising knowledge. "The bolt cauterized the entry point, so you are not bleeding heavily. But the burn damage is severe. You need medical attention." Later, Jiho said. He could hear more footsteps approaching. "We need to move." They found a comm station in a small equipment room. Jiho activated it and contacted Dayan again. "What is happening out there?" he asked. "It is worse than we thought," Dayan said. The coalition has seized the treaty hall. They are holding Emperor Taman and 24 other delegates as hostages. They are demanding that all peace negotiations stop immediately, or they start executing people. Arada made a small sound of distress. My father. He is alive, Dayan assured her. For now. But the situation is critical. What are their demands? Jiho asked. They want all delegations to leave the station within 6 hours. They want the peace treaty officially declared void. And they want safe passage for themselves. Dayan paused. They also specifically demanded that Princess Nara be turned over to them. They claim she is the real target of their movement, a symbol of everything wrong with the current negotiations. That is not going to happen, Jiho said firmly. I know. But you need to understand the situation. The station is fractured. Some security forces are trying to fight back. Others are confused or have been compromised. We are not organized enough to mount a rescue operation yet. Quickly. What about the human rapid response team? The one stationed in the sector? Already on their way? But they are still 2 hours out. We need to hold until then.
Hours.
Jiho looked at Nara, saw the determination in her eyes, despite the fear. We can hold. Nara took the cum. Commander Dayan, this is Princess Nara. I am ordering all Valerian security forces to coordinate with human forces for a joint counterattack. Transmit my authorization code and royal seal. That should override any confusion. Good thinking, Princess, Dayan said. But what about you? Where will you be? We are going to find a secure position and defend it, Nara said. And we are going to buy you the time you need to organize. Jiho found a storage room with only one entrance and good sight lines. He moved equipment to create defensive positions. Nara helped, working without complaint despite her formal dress and the danger. I never imagined this, Nara said as they worked. When I came to this station, I thought the greatest challenge would be negotiating trade agreements and border policies. Not fighting for our lives in a maintenance corridor. War is easier to start than peace is to achieve, Jiho said. These people profit from conflict. They will do anything to prevent our worlds from finding common ground. They will fail, Nara said with conviction. Because people like you exist. People who believe in something better? Jiho looked at her, this princess who had changed so much in just 2 weeks. I could say the same about you. Attackers found them 20 minutes later. They tried to rush the entrance, but Jiho had positioned himself perfectly. The narrow doorway created a choke point. He dropped the first 2 attackers before they could get inside. The others pulled back and tried a different approach. They threw in stun grenades, trying to disorient the defenders. Jiho grabbed Nara and shielded her with his body, absorbing the shockwave that made his ears ring and his vision swim, but he kept fighting. Every time an attacker tried to enter, Jiho was there, his weapon blazing despite his injured shoulder. He was running on determination now. Pushing past pain and exhaustion, Nara stayed behind him, watching his back, calling out warnings when she spotted movement. She had never been in combat before, but she was learning fast. Behind you? Left side, she called out. Jiho spun and fired. Dropping an operative who had tried to sneak in during the chaos, the fight continued for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Jiho's weapon charge was almost depleted. His shoulder wound was screaming in pain, but he did not stop. Nara watched him with something like wonder in her eyes. She had called humans barbaric once, but now she understood. Humans did not fight like barbarians. They fought like warriors who refused to quit, who would stand against impossible odds because it was the right thing to do. I understand now, Nara said during a brief pause in the fighting. What makes humans different? You never surrender. Even when logic says you should, you keep fighting. Call it stubbornness, Jiho said with a tired smile. Or stupidity, depending on who you ask. I call it courage, Nara said quietly. Dan's voice came through the cum. Jiho, Nara, the counterattack is underway. We have retaken 3 sections of the station. The coalition is being pushed back. What about the hostages? Nara asked urgently. There was a pause. Still held in the treaty hall, the coalition's leader, A Valerian general named Hun Su has barricaded himself inside with Emperor Taman and the others. He is demanding to speak with you, Princess. Me, Nara said. He says, if you do not come to the treaty hall alone within 30 minutes, he will start executing hostages, starting with your father. Nara's eyes shifted to pale white, the color of shock. Jiho saw her face change, saw the fear and the determination warring inside her. I have to go, Nara said. No, Jiho said immediately. It is a trap. He wants to use you to make you a symbol. If you go, you play right into his plans. If I do not go, my father dies, Nara said. All those people die. I cannot allow that. We will find another way. There is no other way. Nara stood, straightening her torn dress with as much dignity as she could manage. I am Princess Nara of the Valerian Empire. My duty is to my people, even if it costs me my life. Jiho stood in front of her, blocking her path. I cannot let you walk into certain death. Cannot stop me either, Nara said gently. You are my guardian, Jiho, not my jailer. They stared at each other for a long moment. Finally, Jiho spoke. Then we go together. He said I must come alone, and I say we go as partners, as equals. You are not alone anymore, Nara. Not while I am still breathing. They argued for 15 minutes. Nara insisted she had to face General Hansu alone. Jiho refused to let her walk into danger without protection. Their voices rose as the deadline approached. You do not understand, Nara said. This is about my responsibility as a leader. I cannot hide behind others while my father faces death. And you do not understand what it means to be a guardian, Jiho replied. I swore to protect you. That oath does not end just because the situation becomes difficult. Finally, Nara stopped arguing and looked at him with eyes that had shifted to a soft violet. Why are you so willing to die for me? We barely know each other. 2 weeks ago, I treated you like garbage, because that is what humans do, Jiho said simply. We protect the people we care about, even when it costs us everything. You care about me? Nara asked quietly. More than I should, Jiho admitted. More than a guardian probably should care about the person they protect. But yes, I care. Nara reached out and touched his face gently, careful of his wounded shoulder. Then we go together. Not as princess and guardian. As partners, as equals, they contacted Dayan and explained their plan. Nara would broadcast her compliance with Hansu's demands, making it appear she was surrendering. But Jiho would use his combat suit's stealth technology to remain invisible to sensors. They would enter the treaty hall together, though Hansu would only see Nara. It was risky. The stealth technology was not perfect. If Hansu had the right scanning equipment, he would detect Jiho immediately. But it was the best chance they had. The walk to the treaty hall felt longer than any journey Jiho had ever taken. Nara walked beside him, visible and vulnerable. He moved in silence, his suit's technology bending light around him. The treaty hall doors were sealed. Nara approached alone and spoke clearly. I am here, General Hansu. I have come as you demanded. Release the hostages. The doors opened slowly. Inside, the scene was grim. Emperor Taman sat in the center of the hall, bound to a chair. Around him were 24 other delegates, also restrained. Armed operatives stood guard, their weapons trained on the prisoners. General Hansu stood on the raised platform where the treaty was supposed to be signed. He was an older Valerian with military decorations covering his uniform. His eyes were a harsh crimson, the color of rage. Princess Nara, Hansu said, How noble of you to sacrifice yourself. Come inside. Alone. Nara stepped through the doorway. Jiho followed, moving carefully, staying close to the walls where shadows would help hide him. I have done as you asked, Nara said, her voice steady, despite the fear she must be feeling. Now release my father and the others. Release them. Hansu laughed bitterly. Child, you understand nothing. This is not about hostages. This is about the future of our empire. He gestured to the bound delegates. These people want to make peace with humans. They want to treat those primitives as equals. They would weaken our great empire by mixing with inferior species. Humans are not inferior, Nara said firmly. I have learned that personally. They are brave, loyal, and honorable. They deserve our respect. You have been corrupted, Hansu said with disgust. The reports I received said you had grown fond of your human pet. I did not want to believe it. But here you are, defending them. I defend the truth, Nara replied. And the truth is that peace between our peoples will make both of us stronger. There can be no peace, Hansu declared. I have spent my life fighting humans. I will not see that sacrifice made meaningless by a treaty signed by weaklings and fools. He raised a weapon and pointed it at Emperor Taman. Your father represents everything wrong with our current leadership. Soft, weak, willing to compromise our values. My father is the greatest emperor our people have known, Nara said, stepping forward. He has led with wisdom and strength for 40 years. He has led us toward irrelevance, Hansu countered. But that ends now. I will execute him and the other treaty supporters. Then I will kill you. And when news spreads that humans failed to protect the princess, our people will demand war. The peace talks will be forgotten. Jeho had been moving slowly through the hall, positioning himself for the right moment. He was close now, just meters from Hansu. But the general's guards were alert, their eyes scanning constantly. Nara saw Jeho from the corner of her eye. She understood what he needed. She had to keep Hansu talking, keep his attention focused on her. You speak of strength, General, Nara said. But what is strong about killing unarmed prisoners? What is honorable about attacking from shadows? True strength is the courage to face change, to adapt, to grow. You sound like a human now, Hansu said with contempt. They have infected your mind with their weak philosophies. They have taught me that pride without wisdom is just arrogance, Nara replied. I was proud once, like you. I thought Valerians were superior to all other species. But I was wrong. We are different, yes, but not better. Not superior, just different, enough, Hansu said. He aimed his weapon at Nara instead. You are no longer fit to be empress. Your death will be tragic, but necessary. Jeho moved. His stealth suit flickered as he burst forward, covering the distance to Hansu in 2 seconds. He slammed into the general, knocking the weapon away before Hansu could fire. The guards reacted instantly, but Jeho was faster. He disarmed the nearest operative and used the man as a shield, forcing the others to hold their fire. Hansu recovered quickly, revealing that, despite his age, he was still a formidable warrior. They fought hand to hand. Jeho's human speed and training against Hansu's Valerian strength and experience. Jeho's wounded shoulder screamed in protest with every movement. But he pushed through the pain. Hansu landed a blow that sent Jeho sprawling. The general moved toward a control panel on the wall. Explosives, Jeho realized with horror. He has rigged the hall. Nara saw it too. Without hesitation, she ran forward and grabbed the detonator from the control panel before Hansu could reach it. She held it up, her hand steady. Stand down, General, Nara commanded. Or, I will activate this device and we all die together. You would not, Hansu said. You would kill your own father? I would prevent you from destroying everything my father has worked for, Nara replied. If we must die to stop you, then that is a sacrifice I am willing to make. It was a bluff, Jeho knew. Nara would never actually activate the explosives. But it was convincing enough to make Hansu hesitate. In that moment of hesitation, Jeho struck. He swept Hansu's legs and pinned him to the ground. The fight was over. Daeon and security forces burst through the doors moments later. The rapid response team had arrived, and they quickly secured the hall. The hostages were freed. The remaining coalition operatives were arrested. Emperor Taman embraced his daughter, tears on his silver face. You were magnificent, he said. Brave beyond measure. I was not alone, Nara said, looking at Jeho. I had a guardian who refused to let me face danger by myself. Jeho stood nearby, exhausted and bleeding but alive. Daeon immediately called for medical personnel to treat his shoulder. The next few hours were a blur of medical treatment, debriefings, and security reports. The Crimson Star Coalition had been broken. Some members escaped, but their organization was shattered. The peace talks could continue. 3 days later, the treaty signing ceremony took place as scheduled. Extra security filled the hall, but the atmosphere was one of triumph rather than fear. What had been meant to divide had instead brought humans and Valerians together in shared struggle. Emperor Timon signed first, using the traditional Valerian seal. The human ambassador signed second. When both signatures were complete, the hall erupted in applause. After the ceremony, there was a special presentation. Emperor Timon stood before the assembled delegates and called Jiho forward. "Guardian Jiho," the emperor said formally, "you have served my daughter with loyalty, courage, and honor. You protected her life at risk of your own. You stood against impossible odds and refused to surrender. Today, I bestow upon you the Star of Valeria, the highest honor our empire can grant to someone not born Valerian." Jiho knelt as the emperor placed the medal around his neck. The Valerian delegates applauded, and the human delegation cheered with pride. But when Jiho tried to give a speech, he instead turned to Nara. "Your Highness, I must give credit where it is truly due. Your broadcast united the security forces when division would have meant defeat. Your courage in facing General Hansu created the opening that saved everyone. I was merely your guardian. You were the true hero." Ara's eyes shifted to warm gold. She stepped forward and spoke to the assembly. "When Guardian Jiho was first assigned to me, I rejected him. I saw him as inferior because he was human. I was wrong. He taught me that nobility is not about species or bloodlines. It is about character. It is about standing for what is right, even when the cost is high. He saved my life, but more importantly, he saved me from my own prejudice." She looked at Jiho directly. "I request that Guardian Jiho be assigned as the permanent liaison between Valerian Security and Earth's Special Operations Division. Our peoples will need strong connections as we build this peace together. I can think of no better person to help forge those bonds." Jiho smiled. "I accept, Your Highness." That evening, Jiho and Nara stood together on an observation deck, looking out at the stars. The summit was ending. Tomorrow, delegations would return to their worlds. But everything had changed. "Will you visit Valeria?" Nara asked. "As liaison, you will need to meet with our Security Council regularly." "I will," Jiho said. "Though I imagine your nobles will not be happy about a human spending so much time at the Imperial Court." "They will adjust," Nara said with a smile. "As I did. You have a way of proving yourself to people who doubt you." "Only when those people are willing to give me a chance," Jiho replied. "You could have remained closed-minded. Instead, you chose to see past your prejudice. That took courage." Nara leaned against the observation window. "I was thinking about what you said, about humans never surrendering. I think that is what we need. Not in war, but in peace. The determination to keep trying, to keep building bridges, even when it seems impossible. Can do that together," Jiho said. "Your people and mine." "Yes," Nara agreed. She reached out and took his hand. Together, they stood there looking out at the galaxy that had almost torn itself apart. They both understood that this was just the beginning. The treaty was signed, but the real work of building trust and friendship would take years, be generations. But for the first time in decades, it felt possible. Because a princess had learned to respect a guardian she once rejected. Because a human had proven that courage and loyalty could bridge even the widest divides. Because two people from different worlds had chosen to trust each other, and that trust would become the foundation for everything that followed.